Children, today we'll be talking about the for loop. As you know, we were doing loops. Previously, we had done while loop. The while loop runs a specified number of times, means till the condition is true, it continues to move. It can be an endless loop also till the condition, if the condition remains satisfied always, so the loop keeps on continuing. But if we want a loop to work given a definite number of times, then Python's for loop solves our purpose. A for loop is used for iterating over a sequence, that is either a list, a tuple, a dictionary, a set of strings. With the for loop, we can execute a statement once for each item in a list, tuple, set, etc. Now have a look at the syntax of the for loop. The for, then the variable, which is going to move in the sequence one after the other. Then what is the sequence? The sequence is that determines that how many times the loop will be repeated. And then we have here the statement. It can be a single statement or a group of statements that has to be repeated, which makes the body of the loop. The work which has to be repeatedly is mentioned here as statements. And remember, you should not forget to mark a colon. This is the syntax of the for loop. After giving the sequence, you have to give a colon before you enter into the body of the loop. Now, just have a look at this particular flow chart and try to understand the loop a little better. Now, for example, for A in 147, this is a list of sequence. Now, which means A will be first pointing towards 1. Then after that, now look at this following flow chart. For iterating variable in sequence, here the iterating variable is A. Then item from sequence, the first item which will be taken will be 1. Then if this particular, then in the body of the loop what we have print A, that is 1 is printed, then print A into A, that is again 1 is printed. Now it moves up and it moves on, A moves on to the next iterating the next number, that is 4. Then it prints 4 as A, and then A into A 16, and so on. 7 is also printed. And after 7, since there is nothing more, so what happens? If no more item in the sequence is there, here it is. If no more item is left in the sequence after 147, so we stop the loop, which means we finally reaches the end. So this is how the for loop works with, which means it is working the definite number of times, the number of times it is mentioned in the sequence. Now let's have a look at one more example. That example was demonstrating the numeric values in the list. Now here we have the string values in the list. We have print each fruit in a fruit list. So we say for X in fruits, X is first pointing towards apple, then banana, then cherry. So first print X is going to print apple, then banana, then cherry. The for loop does not require an indexing variable to set beforehand, because it automatically, this particular list is stored in fruits, and then we are using fruits as a variable. Indexing variable beforehand is not required in this loop. Looping through a string, even strings are iterable objects. They contain a sequence of characters. This is banana is a sequence of characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. So if I want to iterate on this, also we want to print B, A, N, A, N, A. So what we do for X in banana? So X is first pointing towards B, after that it points towards A, then N, and so on. It is going to print banana in a straight line. Then we introduce a keyword break. As we have learned with while also we can use break. Now why this break is used? With the break statement we can stop the loop before it has looped through all the items. As we know that the X variable, in this particular case, the X variable is going to loop through all the values in this particular list, which means X is first pointing towards apple. Now, supposingly, I say for X in fruits, print X, which means apple is printed. Then I say, go back, now it is pointing towards banana. I say, print X, which means again banana is printed. Then I say X is double equal to banana, then break, which means now it will not, the X will not move to cherry. Here itself, it is going to break. Then now let's play a little trick in this. We shift the print statement in our example. Let's see what happens. Now exit the loop when X is banana, but this time the break comes before the print. Now see what happens. Will a banana be printed or not? For X in fruits, if X is double equal to banana, break. Otherwise you print X, so apple is printed. Then you go and check X is double equal to banana, then you break. So the print statement is after the break statement. That is why banana will not be printed. Now we see the continue statement. If in any case, whatever the case may be, whatever the comparison may be, we want to continue with the loop, then what happens for X in fruits? If X is double equal to banana, continue. Now for X, first apple is printed, then I am continuing and the print X is after this. So the continue will take it back, take the control back from here itself, and then sorry, banana will not be printed. So then it takes the control to cherry, then it checks it, it continues, and cherry is printed. Now the range function. This is another very important function. The range function has basically three parameters in its brackets. The first is the start, then the stop, and the step. The loop, to loop through a set of code a specified number of times, we can use the range function. We should remember the, I said the start, the stop, and the step. If I talk about the start, even if I don't mention the start as a parameter, it will be taking 0 by default, and the stop has to be, that is mandatory. We need to mention the stop position, and if we don't mention the step by which we want to increment the number, then by default it is 1. Now let's have a look at the example with all the three parameters using the range function only with the stop. Now for X in range 6, we say stop at 6, which means 6 will not be included. The default start is 0 and the default increment is 1. So after this, we say for X in range, which means that X is pointing towards 0, so 0 is printed. Then X moves to 1, then 1 is printed. Then 2, 3, 4, 5. When we come to 6, 6 is a stop. Now we have a start parameter here. Here, instead of having 0, that is the default starting value, we give it as 2. So the range function defaults to 0 as a starting value. However, it is possible to specify the starting value by adding a parameter range 2, 6. Now it starts at 2 and ends at 6. 2, 3, 4, 5. Ends at 6 means 6 will not be included. As soon as 6 is come, X is equal to 6, it will stop. It will not enter the loop. Next is the range parameter, that is the last parameter, that is the stop, the increment parameter. Now, again, if I talk about the increment part, the default increment is 1. The range function defaults to increment the sequence by 1. However, it is possible to specify the increment value by adding a third parameter, that is the stop parameter. So this is the start. You should know that 2 is the start in this, 30 is the stop, which means 30 will not be included, and 3 is the step. Now let's see, X first points towards 2, so 2 is printed. Then X points towards, then after printing 3. So 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Now 5 is printed. After that it moves back until 29 it will be printed, which means starts from 2 and stops at 30. Till 29 it is going to print. Now have a look at the range, few examples of range. If I say only range 10, which means only the stop value is given. So 0 initial, 0 is the default start, 1 is the default increment, so 0 to 9 is printed. If I give the start as 5, so instead of 0 it is taking 5 to 9 is printed. If I give the start as 3, 3 to 6 is printed, it stops one before the value. Then I say 5, 15, 3. So this is how it is going to print. The increment value is 3 here. We can have a negative value also. In that case, it is going to decrement. It is going to move up, move backwards. Now, I introduce else in the for loop. The else keyword in a for loop specifies a block of code to be executed when the loop is finished. But it is going to be executed only once, as we have done in the while loop also. Print all numbers from 0 to 5 and print a message when the loop is finished. Now, when 0 to 5 means 0 is the start, 5 is the value which we want to be printed. So stop is going to be 6. For x in range 6, print x, 0 to 5 numbers are printed, and then else is executed, that is finally finished is going to execute. But this statement will not work as a loop. This will be executed only once. The pass statement, supposingly for any reasons we have not mentioned anything in the loop, no statement is there in the loop, otherwise the structure of the loop is okay, but we don't have any statement in the loop, so sometimes this is going to arise a error. So to avoid that error, we can have a pass statement. For loops cannot be empty, but if your for loop for some reason has a for loop with no content, put in the pass statement to avoid getting an error. Having an empty for loop like this would raise an error without the pass statement. So pass statement will take on the execution further. It is not going to hamper your execution of the code. The nested loops. Now, this is again very interesting, children. Always remember, very few points if you remember properly, then you will play with this nested loop. A nested loop is a loop inside a loop. Remember, this particular line is very, very important. The inner loop, which means you can see in this case, this is the inner loop. The inner loop will be executed one time for each iteration of the outer loop. The outer loop is X in adjective. Now you see, this is having red first when we enter the loop. So X is pointing towards red. X is pointing towards red. And Y is pointing towards apple. Now when we come here, for Y in fruits, it will be executing all the three values. So it will be printing red apple. Then it moves on to the next, red banana, and then red cherry. Now we come out of the inner loop again, and now X is pointing towards big. So what will be printed? Big apple, big banana, big cherry. Then it points towards tasty. So it will be tasty apple, tasty banana, and tasty cherry. So we should remember the inner loop will be executed one time for each iteration of the outer loop. For each iteration of the outer loop means each iteration is red, then big, then tasty. So all three will be worked like this. Okay, so now I think that you must be clear that how we work with the loops, the for and the while. So obviously now it is time for testing you people. So there are two good assignments. One assignment is of the while loop and the other one is of the for loop. So I hope that you all have understood and liked the presentation.